In Chapter 7, we will introduce a new costing system, which is widely used in service and manufacturing companies and non-profit organizations. Activity-based costing. In a traditional costing system, such as job order costing, which we've learned, product costs include direct material, direct labor, and manufacturer overhead. Direct material and direct labor costs are directly traceable to jobs or products. Manufacturing overhead costs will be allocated to jobs or products. Period costs, such as selling and administrative costs, they will not be assigned to cost of product. They will be expensed immediately. Now, let's take a look at the new costing system. Learning Objective 1 is to understand activity-based costing and how it differs from a traditional costing system. Let's first take a look at what's activity-based costing, ABC. ABC is a costing method which is designed to provide managers with cost information for strategic and other decisions which potentially affect capacity. So, it affects both fixed and variable costs. Normally, ABC is a good supplement rather than a replacement for the company's traditional costing system. There are three major differences between traditional and ABC system. First, in the traditional product costing system, only manufacturing costs will be assigned to products. But ABC assigns both manufacturing costs and non-manufacturing costs to products on a cause and effect basis. Second, in the traditional costing system, all manufacturing costs will be assigned to product costs. But ABC does not assign all manufacturing costs to products. Two types of manufacturing costs are excluded from products: organization sustaining costs and the cost of unused or idle capacity. Third, ABC uses more cost pools. For traditional costing system, in job order costing, we've talked about plant-wide overhead rate and departmental overhead rates. If the company has only one product, the company normally rely on volume measures such as direct labor hours or machine hours to allocate all overhead costs to products. So that's plant-wide overhead rate. For departmental overhead rates, the company can use different predetermined overhead rates for different departments. But for ABC, each ABC cost pool has its own unique measure of activity. So it will generate more rates than departmental overhead rates. For activity measure, in ABC, activity measure is allocation based. It's also called cost driver of the activity. There are two types of activity measures: transaction driver and duration driver. Transaction driver is simple count of the number of times of activity occurrence, such as the number of bills sent out to customers. For duration driver, that's a measure of the amount of time performed for the activity, such as the time spent preparing individual bills for customers. Let's take a look at the levels activity under ABC. Traditional costing systems rely exclusively on allocation bases, which are driven by the volume production, such as direct labor hours or machine hours. But ABC defines 5 levels of activity which largely are not related to the volume or units produced: unit level, batch level, product level, customer level, and organization sustaining level. For unit level activities are performed each time a unit is produced, such as providing power to run processing equipment. Batch level activities. They are performed each time a batch is handled or processed, regardless of how many units are in the batch. For example, setting up equipment and shipping customer orders are batch level activities. Product level activities relate to specific products and must be carried out regardless of how many batches are run or units are produced or sold. For example, designing or advertising a product would be a product level activity. Customer level activities relate to specific customers and are not tied to any specific product. For example, sales calls and catalog mailing would be customer level activities. Organization sustaining activities. Those are carried out regardless of which customers are served, which products are produced, how many batches are run, or how many units are made, such as heating a factory or cleaning executive offices. They are examples of organization sustaining activities. In activity-based costing system, total overhead costs include manufacturing costs and non-manufacturing costs. Activities will be defined. Similar activities will be combined into the same activity cost pool. For each activity cost pool, activity measure or the allocation base will be defined and calculated. Let's take a look at the Baxter Battery Company as the example, and we will explain the whole ABC process. The company produces 2 automobile battery lines, a standard battery called the Short Start, a deluxe higher quality battery called the Long Life. No design options are available for the Short Start, but Long Life can be with different casing designs and battery handle locations. For example, the Long Life casing can be produced in different colors with different brands name to suit customers. Let's first take a look at the Baxter Battery Company traditional income statement. We start from sales minus cost of goods sold. The difference is gross margin. Minus selling and administrative expenses, we can get net operating loss. Under cost of goods sold, it includes direct materials, direct labor, and manufacturing overhead. In a traditional costing system, manufacturing overhead is calculated using predetermined overhead rate, which we've learned in job order costing system. Here, when goods are finished, cost will be transferred from work in process to finished goods. When goods are sold, finished goods will be transferred to cost of goods sold. Manufacturing costs or product costs in traditional costing systems such as job order cost system include direct materials, direct labor, and manufacturing overhead. That's why you can see under cost of goods sold, we include direct materials, direct labor, and manufacturing overhead. The total is 41 million. Now let's take a look at the steps to implement ABC. Step 1. Define activities, activity cost pools, and activity measures. Normally in a company, the activities are identified by interviewing employees who work in overhead departments. Similar activities will be combined to reduce activity cost pools. Here, Baxter Battery selected 5 activity cost pools and activity measures respectively. Let's see here. There are 5 pools: customer orders, design changes, order size, customer relations, and other. Let's take a look at the definition for each activity pool. Customer orders. Customer orders assign all costs of resources which are used by taking and processing customer orders. The activity measure or allocation base is number of customer orders. For activity measure, you can go back, take a look at previous slide. Design changes. Design changes assign all costs of resources used by customer requested design changes. The activity measure is number of design changes. Order size assign all cost of resources consumed as a consequence of the number of units produced. So the activity measure is total machine hours. Customer relations assign all costs associated with maintaining relations with customers. Activity measure is number of active customers. For other cost pool assign all organization sustaining costs and unused or idle capacity costs. For activity measure, it's not applicable. We don't have activity measure and we won't calculate activity rate. In the beginning, we talk about activity cost pools in ABC. There are 5 activity levels: unit, batch, product, organization, sustaining, and customer. Now let's match Baxter Battery Company's cost pools to each activity level. Customer orders. Customer orders is a batch level activity. Regardless of how many units produced, customer orders will be performed when the batch is processed. Design changes. Design changes is a product level activity. Regardless of how many batches, how many units produced, design changes is for each type of a product. Order size, that's unit level. Customer relations, customer level. Other is organization sustaining level. Learning Objective 2 and Step 2 is to assign costs to cost pools using a first stage allocation. This is the overhead cost at the Baxter Company, including manufacturing cost and non-manufacturing costs, which should be assigned to activity cost pools. The costs are organized by department: production department, general administrative, and marketing department. If we compare this table with traditional income statement of Baxter Battery Company, we can match some numbers. Production department cost 14 million. It's reported as manufacturing overhead cost on the income statement, 14 million. General administrative department, which will be reported as expense, 6 million. Marketing department, 2 million. In addition to overhead costs, Baxter Battery Company has incurred direct materials, direct labor, and shipping costs. Those 3 will not be assigned to activity cost pools because under Baxter Battery Company's cost system, those three can be directly traceable to products or customer orders. Based on the employee interview results, the company can identify how much percentage of overhead cost in each department should be allocated to individual cost pool. For example, according to the interview, indirect factory employees indicate 30% of their time should be allocated to customer orders, 30% to design changes, 20% to order size, 10% to customer relations, and 10% to other. For factory building lease, 100% should be allocated to other activity cost pool. We can also take a look at percentage allocation by each activity cost pool. For example, for other, 10% from indirect factory wages should be allocated to this pool, 10% from factory equipment depreciation, 30% from factory utilities, and so on. So each category of overhead cost can be allocated to each activity cost pool. Once the percentage allocation have been determined, it's straightforward to assign dollar costs to activity cost pools. Let's take a look at indirect factory wages. Cost here, $6 million. For customer orders cost pool, the company has identified 30% of indirect factory wages should be allocated to this cost pool. So we can allocate 30% of $6 million, $1.8 million should be allocated to customer orders. So you can see the calculation here, 6 million times 30%, and then we can get 1.8 million. Another example, let's take a look at factory equipment depreciation. Overhead cost for this category is 3.5 million. The company has allocated 20% to customer orders. So we calculated using 3.5 million times 20%, and the company will assign $700,000 from factory equipment depreciation cost to customer orders cost pool. And we can calculate for each category of overhead, assign their costs to individual cost pool, and complete this table here. For each activity cost pool, we can get assigned overhead cost. If we add up together, total overhead costs, which should be allocated to activity cost pools, is $22 million.